Good evening, Nigeria. This is Viewpoint. Tonight, the political ground beneath the living spring, Osun State, is shifting and the tremors are being felt far beyond its borders. A sitting governor says, "I didn't just leave the PDP, I was pushed by circumstance." Another governor defects and is welcomed with open arms. A party card and political calculations already on the way. The ruling APC closes ranks, adopts a consensus, and produces a governorship candidate while notable power brokers are nowhere to be found. Smaller parties quietly enter the race with fresh faces, youthful ambition, and new political bets. Let's put the facts on the table. Governor Omisore and Fubara walks out of the PDP straight into the APC and is instantly embraced. Governor Adeleke dumps the PDP for the Accord Party, a political earthquake in Osun State. The PDP fires back, calling both men victims of circumstance they created. The APC adopts a consensus and hands Oyebamiji its Osun governorship ticket, with Omisore conspicuously absent. The APM produces Adebayo as its candidate, and a 39-year-old entrepreneur steps forward under the African Action Congress, rewriting the age narrative in the race. These are not isolated events, they are signals. Signals of party instability, signals of political survival, signals that the 2026 Osun governorship contest will not be business as usual. Tonight on Viewpoint, we ask the hard question: is this about ideology or pure political arithmetic? Are defections acts of courage or confessions of failure? Is consensus a sign of unity or fear of internal revolt? And when younger candidates enter the race, are they changing the game or just decorating the ballot? I'm Odiawa AI, join us shortly. You're welcome back. Tonight, we look at two governors, two states, two political exits, and one burning question. Is this politics of conviction or politics of survival? In Rivers State, Governor Fubara walks out of the PDP into the APC, welcomed with open arms, a membership card, and promise of full alignment with power at the center. In Osun State, Governor Adeleke leaves the PDP for the Accord Party, citing ideology, welfare, and continuity. The PDP responds sharply. Both men, it says, are victims of circumstances they helped create. But is that the full story? Tonight on Viewpoint, we examine what these defections really tell us about power, party loyalty, and internal crisis, and the political road to 2027. Let's begin with Rivers State, Nigeria's oil heartland and one of its most politically combustible territories. Governor Fubara did not defect quietly, he defected deliberately. First, a visit to the presidential villa for a 44 minutes behind closed doors meeting, no official briefing, no disclosure. Then a stakeholders meeting in Port Harcourt, and then the declaration, "We can't support the president from the backyard." That line actually matters, not supporting the president from the backyard, because what Fubara is really saying is this: power in Nigeria is vertical and alignment matters more than distant loyalty. Now remember that context. Alignment matters more than distant loyalty. This is a governor who survived an extraordinary moment in Nigerian democracy: a state of emergency, a 6-month suspension, an appointed administrator, and a state paralyzed by elite conflict. Now when Fubara returned, he pledged peace, reconciliation, and cooperation with Abuja. He chose not to challenge the emergency declaration. He chose calm over confrontation, stability over resistance, and now alignment over opposition. Now, from a cold political calculation, this move actually makes logical sense. Rivers cannot afford prolonged instability. Rivers needs federal cooperation. Rivers is too strategic to be isolated. But politics is not just about sense, it's about consequences. The APC did not hesitate. Within days, a delegation arrives, membership forms are filled, cards are issued, public declarations are made, and the message is unmistakable: you are home. Listen carefully to that language used. You are home, meaning holy assignment. We are at your beck and call. We will work together to deliver the president in 2027. This is not just a defection, it is a strategic acquisition. With Fubara, the APC actually gains a sitting governor in the key South-South states. Secondly, access to state structures. Thirdly, control of political narratives ahead of 2027. A stabilizing Rivers politics environment, and at least on paper. Now, Fubara on his own part stands to gain number one, protection, federal alignment, secondly, thirdly, political breathing room, and lastly, a smoother path to govern without constant siege within Rivers State. But here's the uncomfortable truth rather. When governors defect, they don't go alone. Structures follow, resources follow, and influences follows. And democracy, it adjusts, sometimes awkwardly. Now, let's shift over to the living spring, Osun State, a different kind of defection here. Governor Adeleke does not walk into the APC here. He walks into the Accord Party. Not power at the center, but ideological justification. He says it clearly: welfarism, people-focused governance, completion of reforms. He tells us he consulted, he deliberated, he chose a platform aligned with his philosophy, or which aligned with his philosophy. Politically speaking, this is a total risky move because smaller parties don't come with automatic structures. They don't guarantee federal backing. They don't come with ready-made protection. But Adeleke is betting on incumbency, performance, and local approval. Where Fubara chose alignment, Adeleke chose distinctiveness. Now, these are two exits, two strategies, two philosophies, and both tell us something important. The PDP has stopped being a safe zone for politicians. The PDP does not deny the crisis, it actually explains it here. Its spokesperson says Adeleke and Fubara are victims of circumstances they helped create. And there's the truth here. Internal conflicts have been ignored, leadership disputes postponed, negotiations replacing decisive actions, problems fed until they grew teeth enough, strong enough to bite. But here's the bigger problem. When governors feel unsafe in their own party, when meetings with the president happens without party acknowledgement, when loyalty becomes a liability, then the problem is no longer an individual problem, it's an institutional problem. Opposition parties exist to challenge power, but to do that, they must first control themselves. Right now, as we speak, the PDP is bleeding relevance, not just members. So, what are we actually witnessing? Not just defections, not just party drama, but a revamp of power. Governors are choosing safety over struggle, alignment over ideology, survival over symbolism, and Nigeria must ask the question: what happens to democracy when opposition collapses inwards? What happens when power becomes too comfortable? What happens when voters are left watching elite musical chairs? When we return, the Osun governorship race takes a dramatic turn. A consensus candidate emerges, a key power player who is conspicuously absent, and new names including a 39-year-old entrepreneur stepping boldly into the political arena. What does this consensus really mean for internal party democracy? Why was Omisore missing when the decision was taken? And can smaller parties rewrite the numbers in 2026? Join us shortly. This is still Viewpoint. I'm Odiawa AI. You're welcome back once again. Now, zeroing in further on Osun State, we step into a familiar Nigerian theater where consensus replaces contest, where unity is announced but questions continue to linger, and where new voices knock loudly at the gates of power. This is not just about who emerged, it's about how they emerged, who wasn't in the room, and what the people were and were not allowed to decide. Because 2026 has officially begun as we speak. The All Progressives Congress has spoken, and it spoke in one voice. Bola Oyebamiji, former managing director of the National Inland Waterways Authority, is now the flag bearer of the APC for the Osun governorship election. Not through a ballot battle, not through numbers on paper, but through a consensus. Now, let's be clear for clarification's sake. Consensus is not illegal. Consensus is not undemocratic on paper, but consensus always raises one question Nigerians have learned to ask: who negotiated and on whose behalf? 7 aspirants went to Abuja. A late-night meeting with President Bola Ahmed Tinubu actually followed, and suddenly the contest dissolved into affirmation. Delegates did not choose, they affirmed. And when Governor Monday Okpebholo raised his voice and said, "By the power conferred on me, I present to you Bola Oyebamiji," That sentence alone tells you everything about modern Nigerian party politics. Power does not rise from the floor, it actually descends from the center. But while applause filled the venue in Osogbo, one absence spoke louder than any other endorsement. Senator Iola Omisore was not there actually. Yes, he had publicly accepted the consensus, he pledged loyalty to the party unity, but in Nigerian politics, presence is actually power, absence is protest, even when words deny it. Omisore's political journey in Osun State has never been ordinary. Filling in as a former deputy governor, former national secretary of the APC, a man who understands party machinery. So when such a figure is missing on the day power is formally handed over, it tells us something important. Consensus may silence conflicts, but it does not erase resentment. APC may have avoided an internal war, but the emotional debris of disqualification still lies beneath the surface. And make no mistake, elections are not won only with structures, they are won with enthusiasm. Let us not pretend this is just another Osun State election. Repeatedly, speakers at the primary said the quiet parts out loud. Osun must be connected to the center, meaning federal alignment has become the new campaign promise. The APC is running a familiar argument: vote us and development will follow. Stay outside and isolation will actually continue. It is a powerful message in the country's narrative where federal power controls security, funds, and influence. But here's the danger: when alignment replaces ideology, when access replaces accountability, the voter becomes a bystander in their own democracy. Bola Oyebamiji's acceptance speech was careful and calculated. He spoke of crossroads, of accountability versus waste, of progress versus frivolity. This is not an accidental language. It is a direct framing of the Adeleke administration as unserious, emotional, and wasteful. A sharp contrast to APC's self-image as technocratic and disciplined. But rhetoric is easy. Osun voters will definitely ask on the D-Day, what will be the difference this time? What lessons has the APC actually learned from its previous loss in the state? Consensus gives Oyebamiji unity, but it does not automatically give him connection. That still must be earned. Now, let us turn to the Allied People's Movement, the APM. Adebayo. He did not speak with the language of diplomacy, he spoke with the language of anger. Public trust is gone. The people are tired, the current government has failed. This is protest politics. APM is positioning itself not just against the APC, but against every incumbent structure. However, the APM also adopted a consensus, which means even the parties shouting People's Movement are still relying on elite agreement, not mass contest. The difference is the tone, not structure here. Still, anger resonates in hard times, and anger, when ignored, has a way of surprising incumbents. And then comes the most disruptive voice of all, Olajide Esan, a 39-year-old entrepreneur of the AAC. In a political space dominated by familiar names or surnames and recycled ambitions, the AAC is offering age, rage, and transparency. His language is radical, some would say reckless, but deeply reflective of youth frustration, weaponized poverty, systematic criminality, public display of all funds. This is not traditional Nigerian campaign rhetoric. AAC is not running to win government structures. They are running to win conversations. The question is not whether the AAC, African Action Congress, will win in 2026. The question is whether the anger they represent will be harvested by bigger parties or ignored at their own peril. So tonight we have seen the story beneath the headlines wreaking build-up against Osun 2026. Governors walking away from old political homes, parties opening their doors wide open with membership cards ready, and opposition striking back, calling it self-inflicted fate. A ruling party choosing consensus and silence where power brokers should be, and on the edges of the grand chessboard, new faces, younger, bolder, impatient, stepping into the political race. But here's the real takeaway. This is no longer about loyalty, this is about survival. Not about ideology, but calculation. Not promises, but positioning. So as Osun State moves towards 2026, the numbers are shifting, the alliances are getting thin, and the political ground is no longer stable. The defections, the consensus, and the counter-narratives are not going to end anytime soon. They are an opening into a contest that will test party structures, voter patience, and the future of Osun State. I've been your host, Odiawa AI, and the show has been Viewpoint. You do well to follow us across all our social media platforms. Thanks for watching.